When Russia had started a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we sincerely believed that it wouldn't last for long. But very quickly, a week turned into a month turned into a season, and eventually a season turned into a year. We've been fighting for a year. We've been standing, uniting, and believing in victory for a year. We have been serving Ukrainian society for a year. So before we move on, let's recall what a year it has been.
When the offensive of Kyiv began, everyone was really worried. A lot of people were leaving the city. I remember that we as a church made a decision together that we would need to focus on helping people. So our pastoral team and many volunteers were just calling people and asking them, "Are you okay? Where are you now?" Our team was delivering food kits and medication to people. I remember we even transported people across the bridge. All of the bridges in the city were closed. It was impossible to drive to another side of the city to evacuate. So we had one team that drove people to the bridge. Then people crossed it by foot. And then another team met them there and drove them to the railway station.
Yeah, during the first months of the war, people from our church were just scattered all over the country and abroad. And I just remember that moment, what a blessing it was that we were able to continue our online services, that our media team moved to Lviv, and every Sunday, despite all the circumstances, we had an online service. And also every Thursday, we had an online prayer for our church. I know that there were some volunteers who helped people to find a place to stay abroad. They called people, asked what kind of help they needed. And I remember this woman who told me that she'd like to leave the city, but her mother was disabled and she just couldn't leave her alone. And we as a church provided them with a wheelchair. We came to pick them up. Men physically helped her mom to get out of the house. We took them to the railway station, got them on the train. And the very next day she texted me. It happened so quickly that the fact that they were able to get to the station, get on the train and find a seat, because the trains were packed with people, it was a miracle for her. And there are so many stories like these when people share their needs. And literally in a matter of minutes, hours, we covered those needs.
During March 2022, we delivered vital medication to 71 people. 246 houses were provided with food kits. Our team evacuated 252 people from Kyiv and the suburbs. During this period, our church took care of 1,004 people.
When the liberation of the first cities began, it was in the northern part of Ukraine. As soon as the cities were liberated from the Russian occupation, we as a church immediately started delivering food kits to the cities in that region. And people were so happy to see the team and the people who were able to help them at that time. All the people we've met and helped, they cried. Everyone shared their story. Every family shared their story. And after some time, our global church joined us, and we were able to do even more. And we felt that we were not alone in this problem. We felt the support of our church. So every Sunday, we started bringing help to new cities, new villages, and new places.
Do you remember how we found out about this story? When a shell fell right in front of the house of this woman we know. All the windows were blown out, the roof was completely destroyed. So we gathered a team of volunteers, went to her place, helped her to repair the windows, the roof, and clean the entire house. She and her sister were shocked that the church just came and helped them. We cleaned everything in half a day, both the house and the front yard.
But at the same time, the Russian army was continuing to attack the south and the east of Ukraine, so people still were evacuating in waves. Many refugees were passing through the Dnieper city, through Zaporizhia, through Mykolaiv, and I remember how we just decided to contact our friends in these cities who sheltered the refugees. And we asked, how can we be useful to you? They said what kind of help they needed, and we just sent a part of our humanitarian aid there. In April and May of 2022, 784 people received help through our missionary trips to the occupied territories. Also, 720 food kits were handed out through our friends, churches, and charitable organizations in the frontline regions of central and southern Ukraine.
This man who is part of our church, he is a businessman. He owns a hotel and he decided to open it for refugees so that they could live there for free. It was so great because we as a church were able to provide the refugees with free food. We provided people with good rooms, hot water, and clean towels. I remember this child who came up to me and said, "I haven't wiped myself with a clean white towel for so long." It touched my heart. And in that hotel, we started doing the Alpha course. We started doing our Shine Woman program. Also, we did kids programs there. And later, almost all the refugees who lived there, which was about 70 people. And imagine, almost the entire hotel, all the people, they started coming to watch our online church services every Sunday.
In summer, there was a large influx of people who were evacuating. They were brought here by buses, and we saw another problem, that these people couldn't take all the things they needed with them, like winter clothes, because the buses were packed and there was no space. So, for example, there were families of 3-4 people, and they had only one bag. So we just looked at what we had at that moment, and in the beginning of the war, one of the Family of Christ foundations sent us a lot of humanitarian aid, like several trucks. We handed out all the food very quickly, but we still had one of the trucks with clothes left. So we went through all the clothes, we sorted them by size and by type, and we just realized that people had this need, and we had the opportunity to help them thanks to the foundation. So we started this thing we call Generous Wardrobe. We did about 4 or 5 generous wardrobes. We invited people from Mariupol, we invited people from Kherson region, from eastern Ukraine, and they just came and took any clothes they needed for autumn and winter. They took clothes for children. The clothes were really great, high quality, and we were really grateful for such an opportunity to bless them. I think people really needed this at that time.
And it's so great that not only our global Hillsong Church has helped us, especially campuses from Europe helped us a lot, but other churches as well. For example, Zoe Church from Norwich, UK, they sent us 460 backpacks for children. They were filled with toys and hygiene products. Then in August, families began to think about how to afford all the school supplies their children needed. Because of course, families of refugees did not take school books with them. And we saw this need and decided to bless these children. We arranged a small party for them. It was like an oasis in the desert for kids. And we just gave them the bags of school supplies.
In the summer of 2022, 67 people, including 26 children, were resettled to a shelter hotel for 3 months. 370 families visited our generous wardrobes and received free clothes, shoes, and beddings for their families. We handed out 460 backpacks of hope, and at the end of the August, we blessed 150 children with school supplies.
Summer of the 2022 turned out to be quite calm compared to the spring. There were not so many air alarms. There were not that many missile attacks on Kyiv. That's probably the reason why we decided that it would be great to start our services offline and to gather in our church venue. And in September, we did our first offline service. It was actually a very touching moment because the atmosphere was like, it feels like we haven't seen each other for 10 years. I'm absolutely sure that on that day in the venue, everyone even worshipped God differently. As part of the preparation for the offline weekend, we thought about the air alarms that may start even right in the middle of the service. And we realized that we need a bomb shelter. So we made an agreement with the Institute, which is located nearby, to use the basement as a shelter. We agreed that we'll be there if the air alarm would start, so we organized everything so that when the air alarm started, in 15 minutes the whole church could relocate to the bomb shelter and just continue the service there. In October, Russia began an active phase of shelling again. Blackouts had already started, and we just couldn't do our services when there was no electricity at all. So at that moment, our global church was a huge help for us, and it wasn't the first time. They had helped us with the purchase of a large generator, which completely provided us with all the electricity we needed.
And then we started the warm space. We created this space in our church venue, provided it with heating and Wi-Fi. So people were coming every Friday just to get some hot lunch, warm clothes, and have a chat. We bought warm blankets, candles, warm socks, winter hats, and scarves for children. And every Friday in the warm space, we just gave people what they really needed. They were able to charge their gadgets and work.
We had challenges with fuel and gasoline because prices increased a lot, and it was expected. But then we got the good news that our church from Europe wanted to help us financially. They allocated a large budget to bless us with fuel so that we can have a church services. Another church supported us by buying generators. And when we blessed people with generators, people were shocked. How could it be? Because the generators, they were really expensive at that time.
In the beginning of the 2023, we noticed that children continued to study at schools, but due to the frequent air raids, kids were asked to go down to bomb shelters. And they could spend 5 or 6 hours there until the air raid was over. And usually those shelters had nothing but walls. So we saw this need, and by now we have already equipped bomb shelters for children in 2 schools. One school in Kyiv, one in Horinka. We equipped shelters with generators, table lamps, dishes, and flip charts so that children can continue their studies in shelters. I think that when we take care of children, we take care of future generations. And I know that they are experiencing this war in their own way, but this is their childhood, and we don't want the enemy to rob them of it. We want them to still smile and have fun, regardless of the circumstances.
During this year, we've also been responding to the unique needs people had. In the first months of war, we allocated a budget to help people who couldn't leave the country due to financial reasons. Later, we helped a family of displaced people to simply equip an apartment. We helped elderly people who were left alone or who needed urgent surgery in Ukraine and supported them financially. Also, we helped to make repairs in the house of this one family that takes care of children who became orphans and who lost their parents in the war zone during this terrible war.
We started this year with a Vision Sunday where we declared that we want to create a significant and sustainable impact on society, and that's why we're here. We will continue to help people, and we believe that God will just use us and all we have in our hands to heal, restore, and rebuild the lives of people. During the fall and winter, we did 12 offline church services. 9 times we opened the doors of our warm space where 660 hot meals were handed out and 3 generous wardrobes were arranged. Together with our partners, we were able to equip 2 bomb shelters for children and support 2 schools where children continue to study offline. It was a year of struggle and resilience of Ukrainian people. A year when together we were able to reach the lives of 10,875 Ukrainians and handed out 85 tons of different kinds of aid. We thank our global Hillsong Church, the Zoe Church in Norwich, UK, the Zoe Church in Warsaw, Myloslavskyi Charitable Foundation in Kyiv, the Family of Christ Charitable Foundation in Uzhhorod. Special thanks to all Hillsong rooms in Europe for how incredibly warm you welcomed all the Ukrainians who had evacuated from the war zones. We saw how you sheltered and took care of everyone. Thanks to the Hillsong Church Spain for the warm clothes and generators, to the Hillsong Church Denmark for your help for Ukrainians to keep us warm in winter. We are deeply grateful to everyone who donated, volunteered, prayed, and supported us through social media. We couldn't have done all of this without you.